we started Winniana in 1990. We're out in Purple Springs. For the first number of years, we did things quite conventionally. You know, like Hal talked about, conventional potato farm, a lot of tilling, a lot of urea, high rates, and we did things fairly normally. About 10 years ago, we hit a wall. You know, yields were stagnant. We were having a hard time sizing. So we had storage issues, and we started looking at, well, this isn't going to be sustainable. Where can we go? I mean, what we're doing isn't working anymore. So actually, we sat down with Hal. We've been working with Hal for 25 years now. It's been a long time. So we wanted to change the approach of how we did things compared to the rest of the potato world. I mean, one thing I've said numerous times over the last number of years is we've had the advantage to watch the potato growing areas south of us who are much older, right? And they're having issues with having nematodes and having to fumigate their soil. So we had the advantage of hopefully not making the same mistakes that they have. So we knew we had to try a different approach and make things better. So we started by looking at micronutrients and as opposed to just the macros. You know, the NPK is what we used to just apply. Now we're looking at a lot of your calcium and many other micros to see what the plant needs. The next step to that was looking at soil health. I mean, that has really come to the limelight in the last couple of years. Some of the big companies talk a lot about regenerative ag, which is a very fluid definition, but in my opinion, soil health is the biggest part of that. And there are many different aspects of that. We're finding out how to do that. So, like I said, this was about 10 years ago. We started with healthy rotations. In potatoes, a healthy rotation is incredibly important, or else you run into disease issues and yield losses, things like that. We started using manure and cover crops, but we needed something to tie all this together. So 6 years ago, actually, we met Advanced Ag working with some wastewater. Was the first experience I had with them, but quickly turned into agriculture and soil health. So we trialed with about 4 years of different crops, trying ACF on different things and half circles and pieces. And we've tried it on potatoes, timothy, canola cereals. And so for 4 years, we did a lot of trials. And it probably took that long to convince ourselves that this was a good answer. We've seen a lot of products over the years, so we tend to be a little cynical. We started seeing increased production on alkaline areas, like I was talking about. We have a lot of that, especially in the irrigation world, where these alkaline areas were getting bigger, they were getting worse and less productive. As land values go up, that's becoming a huge issue that we need every acre to produce and produce well. We started seeing on timothy, regrowth between cuts was getting healthier and faster. You know, we would have a swath laying on a circle of timothy for 5, 6, 7 days. Normally, once you bale that, underneath is a big dead yellow spot for a while. Well, we started seeing, we'd pick up that swath and it was still green underneath. Less brown leaf. In the timothy world, color is everything. And if you don't have that brown leaf on the bottom leaves, your quality goes up and your returns go up. Potatoes, we started seeing nutrient uptake, which we thought, well, maybe we can start reducing our fertilizer rates. I mean, one of the big things we noticed in some of our trials was normally we put our pre-plant down and then we take petiole samples every week, and whatever those call for, we often add, whether that be NP or K or the micros, we add to it every week. Since we've started using ACF large scale, we hardly add any fertilizer throughout the year. So now that was 4 years ago. Starting about 2 years ago, we went all in. There's ACF on every acre that we grow. At the same time, what we started doing, we took our typical fertilizer recommendations, we cut them by 20% to start with. That's pre-plant. And then we still use the same process of in-field, which you'll see on some slides in a minute here, how much we've reduced that. So now often people ask, well, what was your aha moment? When did you know that this was one of your solutions? We had a field of chipping potatoes. This was 3 years ago, right, Hal?
Yeah.
A field of Frito-Lay variety. We treated the whole field the same, other than one half was treated with two applications of ACF and the other wasn't. When we put potatoes in storage, we keep very specific records of each spot in the bin, where did it come from in the field. So that separation between the two halves of the field, we kept separate. We had the front half of the bin start to break down, and we had to phone the processor and say, okay, we need to ship this bin because we're going to lose it. When we got to that spot in the bin that where the ACF treated started, there was a perfect line in the bin. My skid steer operator said, what did you do here? All of a sudden the potatoes went from breaking down and low quality to just, we could have stored the rest of the bin for another 3 months. So that was kind of the moment we went, this is something that we need to continue looking at. So this year, we started working with SRP. And on potatoes, we thought this would fit in really well. We started using it on potatoes, wheat, and peas. So on the wheat and the peas, we treated in replacement of a fungicide. So same thing on our irrigation circles, we did half the circle with conventional fungicide and half a circle without. And saw very similar results. So we cut out the conventional fertilizer and quality results were almost the same. On potatoes, we saw much more interesting results. We had 3 circles where we did half of each. We treated the half with SRP, and all of these acres did have ACF on them as well. But the half circle that was treated with SRP was treated 3 times, whereas on potatoes we normally treat or treat with fungicide anywhere from 3 to 6 applications of fungicide on any given circle of potatoes. With 3 applications, we did not spray with fungicide at all, which is kind of unheard of in the potato world. Really, there was no disease issues. I had one field where I had some early blight come in on the headlands. We sprayed our 3rd application of SRP down. Less than 12 hours, that blight on the leaf was dead. So now that's on the disease side of things. The other interesting thing we found, and this was on all 3 circles that we did this trial, was the size difference in the potatoes. Not that the bigger ones got bigger, is that my set was more even. So oftentimes we get a bunch of small ones and then we get a bunch of nice sized ones. Well, in the half with SRP, we were seeing we had a lot more good sized ones. To the point, actually, I just put some of those through the plant. There was 10% less smalls. So in our contract, we have the size profile we need. There was 10% less smalls and a 10% increase in count per pound yield. So on average, that came to 1.1 to 2.5 ton per acre more in those yields. Now, this is some of the data, but this is a comparison of a cost study of 3 other chip potato growers and their inputs, their amount of N, P, and K, and the amount of fungicide they used as compared to what we did. And as you can see, there's some significant differences in the amount of fertilizer that we cut down on, the amount of fungicide that we cut down on, and even with the applications of ACF and SRP, our cost per acre is significantly less. Regenerative ag, I just wanted to touch on this. Kind of a buzzword through the agriculture, but especially in the potato world. Our customers tend to be large processors, corporations that are looking to tell their customers that they're doing a better job. right? So they're looking for growers who are progressive in this. I had one of actually my customers phone me a couple weeks ago. We're required to tell them everything we do in field. All our field records get submitted. And I actually had one of them phone me and say, something has to be wrong with your records. You're using, your records show that you're not using enough fertilizer and you're not using any fungicide. That's impossible. So after a long conversation, I convinced them, no, that is actually what we're doing. And they're pretty excited about it. They're really excited about the direction we're headed, that we can actually lower our footprint, because that, to them, that's what's important, right? So I think this is the way agriculture needs to move. You know, public perception is becoming a big thing. In the end, we're producing food, and the consumer wants to know that this food is safe and produced in a way that's sustainable.